Hello everyone, this is Olga's show live on air every Saturday night. You're welcome to check us on Ustream and you will see us live. It's ustream.tv and search for Olga show. That's what you can find us right now. Later our video would be available on the internet via YouTube. Just search Olga show, become a person who likes to check our interviews out. And that's what we will do. If you want to call us, please call us at 408-912-5265. 408-912-5265. We are in San Jose, capital of Silicon Valley. We will have a wonderful interview with one of the interesting person. But before that, we're gonna play very interesting song for you about apples. And then we tell you why we chose that song. Okay, Olga show for you. And here is the song. It's getting ready. So, just to be sure, how to pronounce your first and last name?
Sharp is the last name, and then the first name is pronounced it's being Maurice or Maurice or Mo.
Okay.
Maurice is
If you
what I'm
introduce
pretty
in this book, you have to leave it here with Olga's show wherever
I will
it's
do
in my
that.
library.
I will do
Okay.
that for you.
And then that's kind of things. And I have to. Yeah, well, for right now it's okay. No, сейчас пока не надо. We'll be right back. One person is missing after 6:30.
So what kind of questions do you want me to ask? This question was asked also about, did you want to answer questions about Couchsurfer?
So couchsurfing is actually, I'm not at couchsurfing now. I'm,
Oh, really?
Yeah, they went through a little bit of a reorganization, and I chose to be one of the people to move on. I started Fan TV tomorrow.
Fan TV
I was at couchsurfing for a while.
So,
I mean, I can certainly talk a bit about them, although they've done a bit of change of direction. It's an awesome. Yeah, no, it's one of those startup things.
yeah.
The CEO is a friend of mine. Not a word. But yeah, people can ask me questions about anything.
So new, but what's this new Fan TV?
Fan TV.
Alright, explain that to me a little bit.
Okay. And I don't know much about it because, as I said, I'm starting for them.
Oh, no wonder that my research. I was like, I researched you, and you said you were.
Okay. So in terms of me, I can ask questions on anything. I've been around the valley since about '92. I was an intern at Apple in '92, and I was there through basically Scully, Spindler, Emilio, and Jobs. I left soon after Jobs came back. I was part of the main thing I did there was part of the music team. Firsthand. After that, I was at Palm. I joined them when there were about 150 people. I was there. Donna Davinsky and Jeff Hawkins were in charge, and then 3Com bought them. Russian Robotics bought them. 3Com bought Russian Robotics, and they went through a bunch of life as Palm, Palm Source. Jeff and Donna moved up to do Handspring, and then eventually came back. So I did Palm for a while. What else did I do? I've been at eBay, AOL.
What did you do on eBay?
eBay, a friend of mine from Apple actually asked me to come in and build what's called the Developer Technical Support Team. So I spent the first 14 odd years of my career
Can you call Аркадий Блюмин и скажи, нет проблем, пускай не беспокоится. Следующее. Увижусь, потом с ним поговорю.
Что мне сказать ему?
Что пускай не беспокоится, we will cover it.
Окей.
Потому что у меня другой есть. Я с ним поговорю уже после передачи.
Хорошо, осталось 30 секунд, меньше даже.
30 seconds, okay?
There were 3 developers that were in the beta stuff, and those 3 developers accounted for about 14% of the seconds. Because the developers at that point were PayPal, who were not part of eBay at that point. On Delay, and one other big.
Can you adjust like somehow?
Oh, sure.
We are live on air, Olga show. How are you today, everyone? This is lovely weather. We are almost in winter time because tomorrow would be 1st of December And today we have a special guest. Once again, if you want to ask questions, please call us at 408-912-5265, 408-912-5265. And we have a special guest, Maurice Sharp, or Maurice, right?
Morris, Mo, Maurice, whatever you like.
Over 20 years in iOS development. Is that what you made yourself famous with?
It's actually, I've been developing iOS since about 2009, but I've been over 21 years in the mobile industry. Started out at Apple as part of the Newton group, and then went to Palm and have done other things for a while.
But that's why we played the
Yep.
song about eat apple a day. For
That's
those who doesn't use Apple, just like me, for instance, didn't made that switch yet. But those who develop other platforms and using other devices, here they are. They also had a wonderful song, "Eat an Apple a Day," right?
Mm-hmm.
So tell me where you were born.
Originally, I was born in London, England. So I have two citizenships, and this is my third country. So I could do my English accent, which is very posh because I was born into a very upper middle class family and did all the proper boys preparatory school, etc. Then went to Canada, and as I said, I've been down here since about '92.
Okay. And did you come to California right away?
Yes, I came down here in '92, ostensibly for a 4-month summer internship at Apple. I was up at the University of Calgary. I got an internship in their advanced technology group and came down here, and really summer hasn't ended, so we're still down here.
Okay, so you still feel like you are an intern?
No, definitely not an intern. I was there, I did an internship in that advanced technology group, loved it, found another internship. This gentleman by the name of Larry Tesler asked me to write the prototype of Newton Toolkit, of a tool chain that was used to develop for the Newton, which was Apple's first mobile device. And he wanted that written in Macintosh Common Lisp, and I knew that very well. So I took that second internship, and from that I ended up with a full-time job in the Newton group, supporting the thousands of third-party developers that were creating software applications for that product.
So here you're a kid on, what is it, like one of the rich family in the United Kingdom. They probably expected somebody else from you?
So my father was a physician, a general practitioner and a surgeon. We have, the family's been all over the world. I have a sister in Israel. I have another sister in London, a brother in Australia, and we run the gamut. So my brother in Australia is another medical person. He's a clinical pathologist. I have another sister who works in the theater. She's a production manager, and she's been backstage on many of the West End plays as well as touring stuff. Another sister was a speech pathologist, and another one did sociology, and then there's me. I ended up doing computer science. Black sheep, I don't know. But
Well, right now you're like in jackpot because this is actually very hot. I don't know if you knew that wherever 20 years ago, but it's definitely much needed these days.
yeah. The definitely computer science is really useful, and the mobile area is really taking off now. It took a while to happen. Newton was too early. It was too big and too early. Palm was a good size, but again, pretty early if you think about the technology of those devices compared to, say, an iPhone or an Android or any of those.
Can I quick question? What is the major differences between like an old Palm and a modern iPhone? Just like.
Okay, so one of the primary things is that there was no phone on most of the old Palms. There was one model that I think that Qualcomm produced that was a phone with an iPhone kind of, or with a Palm sort of built into it. But generally there was no phone, no Bluetooth. There was only one model that had any sort of radio communication. That was the Palm 7. And no phone, no Bluetooth. It was infrared, but that was a little bit, that's definitely a shorter range piece. They were much less powerful, and the Palm devices were pretty much grayscale, actually black and white. What else would be different? Much less memory. They also did a lot less. Writing applications for them was done in a different environment. Still C-based, so you could still do some fairly interesting applications, but nothing of the complexity that you see today.
So the technology wasn't really advanced enough for these kind of modern kind of smartphone stuff to happen yet?
No, not really. The technology wasn't small enough to get the small chips that are on there. And you think about the chips that are in today's iPhone. The most recent one, the 5S, the chip in there is more powerful than most desktop or laptop computers that are out there. It's a very powerful chip.
Not to mention the price-wise, it's probably will cost you arms and legs like $500,000 for the iPhone you have today for about $500.
Yeah, I mean, you really couldn't have built that iPhone back then. Well, you could have built something like the iPhone. It probably would have been, my guess is it would have been about the size of a large desktop computer, the case of it. Possibly even as large as the surface area of a desk, and maybe a little bit thicker, just to get the components in there.
I don't think anybody would carry it with them, fit in the
No,
car.
no.
Guess
No.
we'll need to start building giant people for these iPhones.
Yeah. And the Newton had the same problem. The Newton had a bit more than the Palm had, but it was even bigger.
So now, when you work with iOS development, it's keep improving. Do you still make those improvements and helping them?
Helping who?
With developers, with the rest of the developers.
Okay.
I know you guys get together almost, if not
Right.
every day, once a week, once a month at least.
So I do a few things. I manage a group of developers as well as do development, and I've done that in a couple of different roles. But I also did a book for Addison Wesley to help people learn iOS development. It's part of a series that Erica Sadoun is part of, and that's just recently out. There are things that happen around.
And let me introduce that. For those who are watching us on Ustream, they can see the book, Learning iOS Development by Maurice Sharp, Erica Sadoun, and Rod Struga.
Struga, yeah.
Struga. Sounds like Italian.
Yeah, I think he is.
All right.
And that's available now. I also, and for that book, I do extra samples. So I've got my own site, mauricesharp.com. There's the first additional sample that's up there, and there'll be more coming. There's an event around the Valley that's called iOS Dev Camp. It actually happens in more than just the Valley, but that's once a year here. And at that, I usually show up and just put a sign on my large monitor and that says, "Ask me questions." So I help people there. And there are other places where I help out developers. There's a iOS developer meetup that happens here on Mondays. The first Monday of every month, I think it is. It's happening next Monday. So yeah, first Monday of every month. And that's another place where I go, I might ask questions, I might answer questions. One of the things I found, one of the reasons I really enjoy what's called developer technical support, which is where I started at Apple, really. That's helping, those are engineers that help other third-party developers get their apps done. I found there that I really enjoy helping people, so it was a good role to be in, and I still do. It's one of the places that I get my most satisfaction.
How fast is like iOS changing for like development? Because I know recently iOS 7 came out, so how fast is everything changing?
Definitely iOS 7 was a major change. In fact, it was the source of having to pretty much rewrite the book in about 3.5 months. Not something I would recommend generally people do, but I had I had the book ready for what's called production review the second week of June, which is when Apple had WWDC, and at a dinner that I had with my editor there, it was basically, you've got 3.5 months to rewrite this for iOS 7 and Xcode 5. I think with iOS 7, the velocity of change for iOS should settle down a little. You'll likely see more features. My expectation is that the next sets of models will be more about speed, more about making them nicer. I was reading something that there's actually a display that is more precise than the Retina that Samsung is looking at using. Whether Apple will use it or not, I don't know. The whole point about the Retina is that you really can't distinguish pixels, but that may be part of it. There's other technologies that I think you'll see in use with iOS. There's the new iBeacon technology, which basically means that retailers can put little Bluetooth beacons on sale items, and your iPhone or your iPad can pick that up, and as you go into the store, you can find items you're interested in. So I think you'll see more things coming like that. Other stuff, I'm not sure. If I knew exactly what was coming, I'd be writing the apps for that and building a company around it.
So you don't have any deadlines to build iOS system? Like every year you have a new iPhone, every year new whatever, iPad?
Usually, if you're doing iOS development, no matter whether you're doing it independently or whether you're a company doing it, what you're doing is generally revising your application for whatever the latest stuff is. Usually you'll see a new OS about once a year. The iOS 7 was a lot of work to revise for because it was so different. The next iOS, the next few updates, I do not expect to be that different. But it is Apple, and Apple's very good at being secretive. I was on the inside and know how that works.
Now, being at Apple, did you have the chance to meet famous people?
I met a few people at Apple. I had the pleasure of meeting, actually, he was in the advanced technology group, a gentleman by the name of Canfield Smith. He was one of the originators of Smalltalk, and in my first meeting there, I was actually sitting next to him, and I didn't realize it, and I asked him afterwards, "Are you David Canfield Smith?" And he joked around and said no, but indeed it was. I got to actually help out Gil Amelio. He needed somebody to help him with his Newton and get that going, so I ended up being the person that wandered over there and talked to him. I didn't actually meet Scully when he was there at Apple, but we had our 20th anniversary reunion of the Newton about a month and a half, 2 months ago, and Scully showed up, and he came up to me and started chatting, so I chatted with him as well. There's other folks there, people like Steve Capps, who was one of the very early people that worked on Macintosh. I think I met employee number 5, who was part of the Newton group. Who else? A few other folks there. I'm trying to recall the names. But it was an interesting place to be. It's people there are very, very dedicated to to working with Apple and being at Apple. And generally, it's very, very secretive. I have a lot of friends that are back there. And it's not uncommon for you to be working on something, perhaps engineering for an application or a piece of an operating system, but not know what the product is that you're working for. You might get a little black box that's just circuitry that shows you potentially a screen, but you won't actually know what the product is. You'll just have stuff. There's very few people who know what the real products are going to be that Apple ships next, which is how they keep it so secretive.
All right.
Wait, I have to ask you, what attracted you towards mobile development, even from like the early stages, like Newton?
What gets me into mobile development? It's the idea of being able to take stuff with you. even laptops are just not that small.
Yeah.
And the idea of having power in your hand to do things, and the bits and pieces that you need right there, ready to hand, is very interesting to me. The new notion of wearables is not, that industry is not there yet. It actually reminds me a lot of Newton. The whole thing with Google Glass it's kind of the Newton of wearables. It's very interesting, it's very big, it's very clunky, and it's not going to be how those things are utilized. I can't remember who it was that told me, one of the interesting people, one of the famous people that I've chatted to, I liked what he said, which was, you will know wearable computing is here when you don't know that you're wearing it. And I thought that was a very good observation.
And now, did you decide to be a computer scientist, as I might call you that, when you were like 5 years old, 10 years old?
No. For most of my life, when I was younger, I wanted to be a doctor, because that's what Daddy was, etc. And I got to university, and my first year I took pre-med, and I hated it. So my second year, I just took random courses. I took a drama course, for instance, and ended up in theater. I took in improvisational theater for 6 years.
Can you play something of that nature?
Can I
Do you
play
remember? Like drama?
I can do drama things, but what I did was improvisation. So I did a couple of scripted plays, but it was improvisation. So for instance, I improvised, for my daughter, I improvised the 12 Days of Christmas as sung by a Jewish mensch. So you get, on the first day of Christmas, my true love gave to me a partridge in a pear tree. A partridge in a pear tree? What am I going to do with a partridge and a pear tree? I'm in a New York apartment. And it just goes on and builds from there. But that was totally improvised when I first did it. But I also took a computer science course, and I fell in love with it. And that's when I chose computer science. And I ended up going into a master's in that and just enjoying that. My friend and I founded a consulting company when we were there, and I've been doing it ever since.
So you didn't go right away to mobile devices?
No.
But then did you see the trend, or it just so happened?
I didn't see the trend at that point. It just so happened. I got into the Newton group, and at that point, that's when I got into mobile. It's only really after I started seriously working at Apple that I started to follow trends and look at where the industry was going. And it's probably only in the past 10 years or so that I've been any good at doing that.
Now, with your book, what did you try to achieve for the programmers?
The book is designed so that if you don't know how to code for iOS, by the time you're finished the book, you'll know everything you need to know to write apps. Some books don't give you all the bits and pieces of technology. This one does everything, including enough of core data and some other technology pieces. Eventually, you'll want to learn some more bits and pieces, but you can do several apps with this.
And if you want to ask any questions, you can call us today at 408-912-5265, 408-912-5265. Or you can contact us off the air by going to website olga-show.com, and then you will find all of the information how to send me questions, and then I will forward to Maurice Sharp, who actually did write the book, Learning iOS Development. And for those who didn't see that, I guess you wrote all the way until iOS 7.
I wrote it once for iOS 6, and then I revised it for iOS 7 before it got published.
So here it is. It's quite a big book. My God, how many pages? Let me see. Over 500 pages. So good luck with that, everyone. And hardly any pictures. I mean, I see some, I know, and no colors, hardly. So yes, so how do you feel about that? Does it remind you of school book?
Well, it's still shorter than my chem textbook, so that's good news.
Okay, so, and probably will make you more money than chemist will.
That's true.
At least for right now, but we never know in the future, okay? The trend might change, and we will want some more chemists in the industry, not the programmers, so we never know, right?
Yeah.
Do we know what will happen in the future?
There's a couple of trends that are coming out. One is wearable computing, and as I said, that's not there yet, but there's some interesting. there will be some interesting stuff coming out, I expect, in the next couple of years. The more interesting trend is cognitive computing. So I was up at a one-day seminar at IBM Almaden Research a couple of weeks ago, and that was very interesting. You had people like the co-founder of Sun and a number of others just giving talks on where cognitive computing is and where it's going. And that's one where we're almost at the point where you can start getting applications that are smart, applications that can actually learn and react to you and be useful for you.
Could you quickly explain to everyone what like cognitive computing really is? Because it seems pretty complicated.
So cognitive computing is about building software that has that can learn and that can reason, that can think, usually in specific areas, domain-specific areas. But you could have software that was running a power plant or something like that, and would know when it was necessarily a problem you would need to call out. You can have software that helps you figure out what to cook. You could have lots of different types of software. You could do some very, very interesting things in medicine, plus you could do some good things in education as well. There was, yeah, I have notes from that seminar. It was an incredible day, and I'm still digesting the information that I got there.
So perhaps you will look into the notes, but we will have commercial break, and then maybe you will practice drama. I never heard, I mean, I heard it, but I don't know if I can perform as good as you are. You listen in Olga's show, and we have Maurice Sharp at our studio today talking about learning iOS development and his life, about all computer science and developers here in Silicon Valley. So Olga show for you every Saturday night. Stay with us.
For listening to U9.